In my backyard, there's always been this piece of land behind the pool, so I spent all summer building this massive timber frame gazebo and making a beautiful paver patio. On the other side of the pool, we had these old pavers that were falling apart, and the pool sidewalk had sunk 4 inches into the ground. So I made this in-depth video in a step-by-step format showing how I laid 1,100 square feet of pavers around the pool and completely transforming our backyard for under $4,500. If I were to have a company install a patio of this size, we'd be looking at a project that costs about $27,000. And this is why I decided to build this myself. Although the details don't need to be settled just yet, one thing to think about is the types of pavers that you want to install. You can visit a stone yard in person to look at samples, colors, and patterns. In my case, I ended up buying used pavers on Marketplace because the quote I got for brand new was $9,000. So I looked on Marketplace every morning for a few weeks, and I went to go see them in person. I got a crazy deal paying $2,500 for 1,100 square feet of driveway pavers delivered to my house. Now I can start to plan digging out the ground to make room for the new pavers. Clearing this area won't be a small task. I was gonna do it with a shovel, but I'm really lucky to have such a nice neighbor. He saw me one day building the gazebo and told me if I ever needed his excavator that I could borrow it on weekends. This alone probably saved me a full week of digging and, most importantly, my back. It's a good idea to do some planning so you know how much digging will be needed. In a traditional patio install, after the geotextile fabric, we would add 4 inches of gravel prior to placing down 1 inch of screeding material, which can be stone dust, leveling sand, or 1/4 inch chipstone. We'll talk about this a little later. To make room for the 4 inches of gravel, it will mean a lot of digging and a lot of dirt to haul away. I spent a full weekend with my neighbor and his excavator doing nothing but removing dirt and tree stumps. I also borrowed another buddy's truck for the weekend. The day prior to this, I posted an ad for free backfill dirt on Facebook groups and Marketplace near me, and I got someone from close by that wanted it all. I brought him 3 truckloads, so that saved me a few bucks. Alright, I finished excavating the dirt for the work area, so now we could lay down the geotextile fabric, which some people like to call weed barrier, but its real purpose is to keep the rocks and material in place and prevent it from washing away. I overlapped each layer of geotextile by 6 inches, and I used gravel to hold it down while installing it. Now that the fabric is down, I can start working on my gravel base. This next step is going to be trying to flatten out and grade the area. To help determine my slopes, I planted several stakes using rebar. Once I got my stakes measured out and placed where I wanted them, I can tie a string line to connect the stakes. Using a line level, I can ensure that my string is perfectly level. I'll be dropping my slope at 1/8 inch per foot. In theory, and in a lot of YouTube videos I saw, this seems quite simple. But in my case, this was a huge challenge. I'm not sure why exactly. Maybe it's because I had 6 posts kind of in the way. Maybe it was the sinking sidewalk that was throwing everything off. One thing's for sure is that I needed to fix the sidewalk ASAP before I could get the pavers lined up flush to it. So I'm gonna mark it right there. And I think I'm gonna base this entire pad off of this. But first, I think I'm gonna jack up the entire pool sidewalk. I think we're gonna get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bottle jacks, and we're gonna try and pry this entire thing, try and get it as close to this string line as possible. I got a few quotes to break and pour a new sidewalk, but there would be another cost to this. By breaking the sidewalk, they would have to remove the pool liner, and I would have to get a new one installed. Anyways, what I ended up doing here is getting some bottle jacks and using spray foam to raise the concrete sidewalk all around the pool. It only took a weekend to do, and if you want to learn more about this, I made a separate video on how to raise the sidewalk. The string line just wasn't going to work for me. I can see how the pros do it using the rake, but the more I was reading and learning about the gravel base, it's essentially the most important thing here. It's the foundation. And apparently pavers tend to sink into the ground if the foundation isn't thick enough, or if there's more than 1 inch of screeding material. So my ridiculous idea was to pretty much screed the gravel down until I had it all just right. And hopefully then, I should have a perfect pitch on all sides of the pool sidewalk. I made this piece of wood with a notch at one end, and that notch was the exact height of the pavers I bought, plus 1 inch for the screeding material. This would be the perfect guy to have perfect height and perfect pitch for my gravel-based layer. Every time I finished a section, I would wet the area with the hose and then run a plate compactor. One thing I didn't take into consideration is that once you compact it down, you actually lower the area. So anyways, I had to do that 2 or 3 times until I got to the exact height for my pavers to sit flush with the sidewalk. I then proceeded with a similar approach to do the rest of the area. Now that I had the highest area graded all around the sidewalk, I can then level out further away from the pool and work my way out. I had the straightest 2x4 I had ever seen. Even a month later, that board was still straight. I used this for the larger areas. I also kept my level close by to constantly check the pitch. This method probably is overkill and I probably wasted a lot of time, but it's the only method that really worked for me. Digging out the dirt, leveling out the base, and prepping the ground was a process that took me multiple weekends to get to this point. So like in a traditional paver patio install, we added a geotextile fabric, we added 4 inches of gravel, and now it's time for the screeding layer. I won't tell you what to use because everywhere I looked, I'd get a different answer. I think in southern states, they use leveling sand, but in Canada, stone dust is very common, and I also heard that using 1/4 inch chipstone or clear stone is also a great choice. I decided to go with stone dust as it was recommended from all the quotes I got. From all the YouTube videos and research I did, I think the most important thing to understand, whether you use either one of these 3 options, is that there shouldn't be any areas with more than 1 inch of stone dust. Otherwise, you'll risk the screeding layer being susceptible to compact more than the rest of the area in just a matter of years. In order to get the stone dust to be leveled at about 1 inch, I will use some 3/4 inch galvanized pipes to screed off of. And a 3/4 inch galvanized pipe from Home Depot is a perfect 1 inch outside diameter. I bought 3 of these, but having 4 would have made my life a lot easier. After laying down 2 parallel pieces of galvanized pipe, I will lay my level on them and make sure it is sloped correctly. Then I could spread stone dust over the area and then screed it smooth. Once we screed the length of the pipe, we can slide it down and continue the process. Remember to continue to make sure that you are leveled correctly and adjust the pipes when needed. If I'm off slightly, I will hammer the pipe down where it's too high. The divots that are left behind from the pipes will be filled with the stone dust using a trowel once we move the pipes or when we're laying the pavers. We'll continue the screeding process until the entire work area is screeded. Once finished with the row, we'll move the pipe over and continue screeding a new row. My kids really enjoyed helping me throughout the summer, so I got them a little wheelbarrow. They really love that thing. Even though there were still no pavers on the ground, this was the first time in a while I felt a real sense of satisfaction. All the hard work I put into this floor and finally seeing it flat. In just 5 hours, I was able to screed this 400 square foot section. The next morning, I woke up to a perfect surface to start laying pavers, but I couldn't start just yet. First, I had to figure out what my guide or straight line would be, so I placed a line parallel to my gazebo posts and pool, but 6 inches away from the sidewalk, because I knew there were imperfections on the edge of the sidewalk. Remember how I bought used pavers? Well, there is one downside to that. I had to scrape the old polymeric sand off every single paver. Oh, and another thing. Remember how I bought driveway pavers? Well, these are Permacon Esbelto slabs, and they're 80 millimeters in thickness, or 3 inches and an eighth. Might seem like a good thing, because this floor will probably last 10,000 years, but the downside is that they weigh like 100 pounds each. 81 pounds to be exact. Laying the first row proved to be a challenge. I didn't know how to grab the pavers or how not to crush my fingers, so on the first row they definitely slipped out a few times. This is going to be very difficult. This was going to be the first time cutting a paver in my life, and the first time using a cut-off saw. I'm showing this cut so you can see anyone can do it, even yourself. For the first couple of cuts, I definitely was a little scared. It's a heavy saw, makes a crap ton of noise, and the only choice you have with this saw is either dusty or wet. I made the cut a little too tight, so I cleaned up the edges with my oscillating tool at first, but it's very slow. I only use this technique on the first couple of cuts. As you can see here, I was totally clueless, and balancing a paver vertically is kind of dangerous, so please don't do this. Hopefully by watching me measure and make cuts and see me gain the experience in just a few days, you gain some confidence quicker and learn what to do and what not to do. For those of you that don't know me, I'm actually a web designer, so I work sitting at a desk all day, and I could say that my lower back had a very hard time bending down with these pavers. By the time I got to the third row, I think I found the proper way to hold the pavers to do the click and drop technique. I'd click, drop, then grab my mallet and pound on the paver to make sure the edges were flush to each other. Till this point, I was alone, but my brother-in-law showed up to help. Some helping hands are always welcome with this kind of work. He scraped the pavers and brought them closer to me while I was laying them. Once I got close to the sand divots created by the galvanized pipes, I filled them in with some stone dust. I made sure to keep a close eye on lining up the brick pattern. I used the measuring tape to help me find the center of the paver, and I also used my eye to look at the line. If I noticed the line was off by a little bit, I would push the pavers until the line was straight. Babysitting and doing pavers at the same time proved to be somewhat of a challenge.
Luca, cuidado. No, allá no camines, allá, on the tiles. Stay there, stay there.
The first day of laying pavers ended in thunder showers.
Oh, shit.
The next day, my good friend came out to help, and we crushed the whole area under the gazebo. These back posts definitely were a challenge to cut around. All three posts landed directly in the middle of the three pavers. So I decided to cut the paver in half and then cut a rectangle in each one. I'll show you how I made these cuts in just a second.
All right, bud, let's keep it going.
One thing I learned quickly: the spray from the wet saw erases your line, so it's best to cut dry for the first pass and then turn on the water and cut it through. If you're going to be using a cutoff saw, it's super important to wear safety glasses, earmuffs, and a mask. I really should have worn safety glasses. These curved cuts I had to do around the sidewalk was something I was dreading for 2 days now. I had no idea how I was going to cut these. What's the worst that could happen though? After making this cut, it really gave me all the confidence I needed to bang it all out. One tip I strongly recommend is to always clean your area around where you cut, as the slurry the sauce sprays while you cut sticks to everything and is essentially cement that just bonds to whatever it touches. So I made sure to take the hose and sometimes even the pressure washer to clean everywhere around. I wanted to do something cool for the entrance, so I started laying out a path of pavers to the door. I decided to leave a gap of 30 inches to the fence on this side and put a border paver. I'll be making a video soon about how I make my backyard super modern with long grasses, plants, and 12-volt lighting all around the yard. For long straight cuts, I would snap a chalk line and then go back over it with a level and a marker to make the line a little more permanent. These were scraps that came with it, so I'm trying to use as much as I can. So we're gonna take these little thin strips that we're cutting off and then we're gonna rotate them and put them where they are. Here, I feel like I'm gonna need a tiny little piece. Careful, buddy, it's gonna be kind of loud. The edge restraint I got came in 7-foot lengths. They recommend to remove some of the stone dust from the edge before putting down the edge restraint, so that's what I did. I used 10-inch metal nails every linear foot, and after the edge restraint was fully nailed in, I could finally get back to working on the entrance. On this edge, I knew there was going to be a lot of foot traffic, and over time it would probably start to shift or sink away from the rest of the pavers. So I decided to remove the stone dust and make a concrete base. I waited for the concrete to harden a bit, and then I went back with a little bit more concrete, and I placed the pavers perfectly flush with the rest of the patio. I decided to put 3 pavers side by side for the entrance. And I put down some 1/2-inch river stone to really complete this entrance. I can't wait to make a fence to hide all this pool equipment. On the other side of the pool, there was still no progress, so I posted an ad for free pavers. And believe it or not, a week later, I had someone come and do all the hard work for me. While they take care of that, we could go back to cutting around the sidewalk. To make these curved cuts along the sidewalk, I placed a little piece of paver as a riser. I would then lay a paver on top and make sure it's sitting flush to all the other pavers around it, as if it was in place. I then put my eye right over the intersection where the sidewalk meets the paver, and I marked it. Then I used my combination square to get the mark on the top face of the paver. I then used my trowel's straight edge to join the 2 lines. As simple as that. For pavers with longer curved cuts, I would measure again in the middle or in intervals of 4 to 6 inches and make a curved cut for these. I decided to use polymeric sand because I wanted it to harden and act like a grout and really hold everything together. It's quite a simple task to do, really. Just make sure your pavers are bone dry, as this product starts to activate with a little water. Every couple of strokes, I would take my mallet and bang on the pavers to get the sand to go all the way down into the cracks. I noticed that my broom was pushing sand out of the joint when I pushed parallel to the pavers, so I started brooming in a diagonal pattern. I noticed the sand was falling through around the edges, so I got some masking tape and put it along the sides to hold it in place. Once you're done brooming, it's important to use a blower to remove any polymeric sand on top of the pavers. You don't want this product sticking to the top of the pavers. After reading the instructions to my 6-year-old, they recommend to gently water the pavers without aiming directly at the pavers. And then you'll go back 5 minutes later to give it a good soak. Just follow the instructions on the bag and you should be good to go. I'm really happy with how everything turned out, and I gotta say, I learned a lot. But what I really want to know is what the wife thinks.
Nice. What about the other side of the pool?
That's coming soon in the next video. If you like what you saw, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.